The space station called Korath was a dark place. It floated in the middle of nowhere, far from any law or order. Pirates came here. Smugglers came here. Killers came here. And at the very top of this mountain of crime sat a woman who was not really a woman at all. Her name was Seraphine, and she belonged to a race called the Valdori. Humans who first met her kind gave them a simple name. They called them space vampires. The Valdori did not drink blood like the old Earth legends. They did something worse. They fed on life itself. They could drain the energy from any living thing with just a touch. And the most deadly way they fed was through a kiss. Seraphine had ruled Korath Station for over 200 years. She was tall and thin, with skin as white as fresh snow. Her hair was black and fell past her shoulders like a dark waterfall. Her eyes were the color of dying stars, a mix of purple and red that seemed to glow in dim light. When she smiled, you could see her fangs. They were small and sharp, and they had been the last thing many powerful men had ever seen. She had a game she liked to play. When a man caught her interest, she would offer him a challenge. One kiss. If he could survive it, she would give him anything he wanted. Power, wealth, her hand in marriage. But no one ever survived. She had kissed warlords who had conquered entire planets. She had kissed princes born to rule empires. She had kissed champions who had won 1,000 battles. They all died the same way. Their hearts stopped. Their eyes went empty, and their bodies fell to the floor like broken toys. 17 men had accepted her challenge in the last 50 years. 17 bodies had been carried out of her throne room. Seraphine did not feel guilt about this. To her, it was simply nature. The strong fed on the weak. That was how the universe worked out on the day everything changed. A small cargo ship docked at the station. It was an old ship, held together with patches and prayers. The name painted on its side was the Quiet Dawn. The man who walked off the ship was just as worn as his vessel. His name was Cole Harris. He was 34 years old, though he looked older. His brown hair was streaked with early gray. His face was rough with stubble, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He wore simple clothes, a brown jacket over a gray shirt, and boots that had seen better days. He carried no weapons that anyone could see, though there was a holster on his hip that was not empty. Cole was a cargo hauler. He moved supplies from one place to another. It was not exciting work, but it paid enough to keep his ship running and food in his belly. He had come to Korath Station for one reason only. A refugee colony on a nearby moon needed medicine. The only place to buy that medicine was here, in this nest of criminals. He did not plan to stay long. He did not plan to talk to anyone. In fact, Cole did not talk at all. He had not spoken a single word in 7 years. The silence had started the day he lost everything. 7 years ago, pirates had attacked the small colony where he lived. They came without warning, burning and killing as they pleased. Cole had been away when it happened, hauling cargo on a routine job. When he came back, he found only ashes. His wife, a kind woman named Lucy, had died in the attack. His daughter, a little girl of 5 named Emma, had died with her. Cole had searched the ruins for hours, hoping to find them alive. He found their bodies instead, holding each other in what had been their home. Something broke inside Cole that day. The part of him that could speak, that could laugh, that could feel joy, it all went dark. He stopped talking because he had nothing left to say. He stopped smiling because there was nothing left to smile about. He became a ghost, a man who moved through the universe without really living in it. When Cole entered the station, he kept his head down and his eyes forward. He found a merchant selling medical supplies and paid a fair price. He loaded the crates onto a hover cart and started walking back to his ship. That should have been the end of it. He should have been gone within the hour. But then the enforcers came. There were 4 of them. big aliens with scales and tusks. They wore the mark of Lady Seraphine on their armor. They stepped in front of Cole and blocked his path. The leader, a creature with a scar across his snout, grinned down at him. "New face," the enforcer said. "You pay tax to Lady Seraphine. 20% of cargo. Standard fee." Cole looked at the enforcers. Then he looked at the medical supplies on his cart. He thought about the sick children on the refugee colony who were waiting for this medicine. He thought about how many of them might die if he gave up 20%. He shook his head no. The enforcer laughed. "You don't understand, human. This not request. This is how things work here. You pay, or we take. Simple." Cole still did not speak. He simply stood there, one hand resting on the handle of his sidearm. His eyes were calm and cold, like the eyes of a man who had already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. The enforcers looked at each other. They had seen plenty of tough men before. They had broken all of them. But something about this human was different. He was not trying to look brave. He was not putting on a show. He simply did not care what happened to him. The standoff lasted for a full minute. Then the lead enforcer made a decision. He would not fight over a cart of medicine. There were easier targets. He spat on the ground near Cole's feet and stepped aside. "Lady Seraphine will hear about this," he growled. "You make enemy today, human. Big mistake." Cole walked past them without looking back. He loaded his cargo onto his ship and prepared to leave. But before he could power up his engines, a message appeared on his communication screen. It was a summons. Lady Seraphine wished to meet the silent human who had defied her enforcers. Attendance was not optional. Cole read the message twice. He could try to run. His ship was fast enough to escape if he left right now. But the refugee colony was in Seraphine's territory. If he made an enemy of her, she would take it out on them. The sick children would never get their medicine. He had no choice. Cole powered down his engines and walked back into the station. He followed the directions in the message through winding corridors and dark passages. The walls grew richer as he walked, plain metal giving way to carved stone and hanging silk. He was entering the heart of the spider's web. 2 guards opened a massive door, and Cole stepped into the throne room of Lady Seraphine. It was a grand hall filled with shadows and candlelight. Aliens of many species stood along the walls, watching him with hungry eyes. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of black glass, sat the pale empress herself. Seraphine looked at the human with interest. He was not much to look at. He was smaller than most of the warriors who came seeking her favor. He had no impressive armor, no famous name, no army at his back. And yet he walked toward her without any fear in his step. She leaned forward on her throne. "They tell me you refuse to pay my tax," she said. Her voice was soft and cold, like wind over ice. "They tell me you said nothing. They tell me you simply stared at my enforcers until they let you pass. Is this true?" Cole stopped at the foot of her throne. He reached into his pocket, and every guard in the room tensed. But all he pulled out was a small notepad and a pen. He wrote something in quick, neat letters and held it up for her to read. The note said, "Yes." Seraphine smiled, showing her fangs. "A man of few words. I like that. Tell me, silent human, why do you show no fear? Do you not know who I am? Do you not know what I can do?" Cole wrote another note and held it up. It said, "Fear requires something left to lose." The throne room went silent. Seraphine read the note 3 times. Then she began to laugh. It was not a cruel laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just found something unexpected and wonderful. "Oh," she said softly. "Oh, you poor, broken thing. You are going to be so much fun." She stood from her throne and walked down the steps toward him. Every alien in the room held their breath. They all knew what was coming next. "I have a game I like to play," Seraphine said. "Would you like to hear the rules?" Seraphine walked in a slow circle around Cole. She moved like a cat studying a mouse. Her long dress made soft sounds as it brushed against the stone floor. The candlelight made her pale skin glow like moonlight on snow. "The game is simple," she said. "I offer you one kiss, just one. If you survive it, I will give you whatever you want. Your cargo will be released. You will have safe passage through my territory forever. I will even throw in a bag of gold for your trouble." She stopped in front of him and tilted her head. "But if you die, and you will die, then your ship and everything on it becomes mine. Those are the rules. Do you accept?" The aliens in the throne room began to whisper among themselves. Some of them had seen this game before. They knew how it always ended. The betting started immediately. A fat merchant in silk robes offered 10-to-1 odds that the human would last less than 3 seconds. A scarred warrior in black armor laughed and said he would bet on 2 seconds. Cole stood perfectly still. He looked at Seraphine with those tired, empty eyes. Then he pulled out his notepad and wrote something. He held it up for the whole room to see. The note said, "I accept. But when I survive, you will answer one question truthfully." The throne room exploded with laughter. The aliens pointed at him and slapped their legs. Even the guards were grinning. The idea of a human surviving Seraphine's kiss was the funniest thing they had heard in years. Seraphine did not laugh. She looked at the note with a small frown. There was something strange about this human. He was not being brave. Brave men puffed up their chests and made big speeches. Cole was calm. He was certain. It was the certainty of a man who had already accepted death and was simply waiting for it to come. "You think you will survive?" she asked. "I have killed 17 men with this game. Warlords, princes, champions. What makes you think you are different?" Cole wrote another note. "I am not different. I am already dead. I have been dead for 7 years. You cannot kill what is not alive." The laughter in the room faded. Even the drunk merchants and the cruel warriors felt something cold pass through the air. There was a weight to those words, a truth that went deeper than boasting. Seraphine felt it too. She reached out with her senses, the way her kind could feel the life force of other beings. What she found in Cole surprised her. Most creatures burned with energy. They were fires of different sizes, some bright and some dim, but all of them burning. Cole was different. His flame was so small it was almost gone. It was like looking at the last ember of a dying fire, a tiny spark surrounded by endless dark. He was not lying. Something inside him had died a long time ago, and what was left was barely clinging to life. For a moment, Seraphine felt something she had not felt in centuries. She was not sure what to call it. Pity, perhaps. Or maybe it was curiosity. She had fed on so many lives, but she had never tasted one like this. "Very well," she said. "I accept your terms. If you survive, you may ask me one question, and I will answer it truthfully. But you will not survive." She stepped closer to him. She was tall enough that she had to look down at his face. Her cold fingers touched his chin and tilted it upward. Her touch was like ice against his skin. "Last chance to run," she whispered. "I will not think less of you." Cole did not move. He did not try to pull away. He simply stood there and waited. Seraphine smiled. She leaned in close until her lips were almost touching his. She could feel his heartbeat, slow and steady. Most men's hearts raced at this point. They were filled with fear and hope and desperate need. Cole's heart was calm. It beat like the heart of a man taking a walk, not a man about to die. "Goodbye, silent human," she said. And then she kissed him. The moment their lips touched, Seraphine began to feed. She opened the channel between them and started to pull at his life force. It was like drinking from a well. She expected to drain him in seconds, just like all the others. But what she found inside him was not what she expected. The first thing that hit her was the darkness. It was not the darkness of evil or cruelty. It was the darkness of emptiness. It was a void where joy and hope and love had once lived. It was the darkness of a man who had lost everything and had spent 7 years walking through life like a ghost. Then came the memories. Seraphine saw a small house on a green planet. She saw sunlight streaming through windows. She saw a woman with brown hair and a kind smile standing in a kitchen. The woman was humming a song as she cooked. A little girl ran through the room, laughing, her blonde hair bouncing as she chased a small robot toy. She saw the woman turn and smile. She heard her voice say, "Cole, dinner's almost ready." She saw the little girl run to her father and jump into his arms. She heard the child say, "Daddy, Daddy, watch what my robot can do." She felt the love that Cole had felt in that moment. It was warm and pure and endless. It was the kind of love that made life worth living. And then she saw the fire. The memory shifted. Seraphine saw smoke rising from the green planet. She saw Cole's ship racing through space, pushing its engines to the breaking point. She felt his fear, his desperate hope that he was wrong, that his family was safe, that this was all a mistake. She saw him land in the ruins of his colony. She saw him run through streets filled with ash and bodies. She felt his heart pounding in his chest as he screamed his wife's name. As he screamed his daughter's name, she found them in the ruins of their home. Lucy was on the ground, her arms wrapped around Emma. They had died together, holding each other. The pirates had shown no mercy. Seraphine had felt what Cole had felt when he found them. It was not sadness. It was not grief. Those words were too small. What she felt was the end of the world. It was the moment when everything that mattered was ripped away, leaving nothing but a hole that could never be filled. She tried to pull back. She tried to break the kiss. This was too much. She had fed on thousands of beings, but she had never felt anything like this. Human emotions were not like the feelings of other races. They were not calm and controlled. They were wild and deep and overwhelming. But Cole would not let her go. His hand came up and held the back of her head. His other arm wrapped around her waist. He pulled her closer instead of pushing her away. And then, impossible as it seemed, he kissed her back. The connection between them changed. It was no longer a one-way channel. It was no longer predator and prey. Cole opened himself completely and pushed everything he had into her. Every memory of his wife. Every memory of his daughter. Every night he had spent alone in his ship, staring at the ceiling and wondering why he was still alive. Every morning he had forced himself to get out of bed when all he wanted was to stay there forever. 7 years of grief poured into Seraphine like a river of fire. She screamed against his lips. Her legs went weak. She would have fallen if Cole had not been holding her up. The aliens in the throne room moved toward them, their weapons drawn. But Kale, Seraphine's second in command, stepped in their way. "No," Kale said. His voice was hard. "The ancient laws say no one may interrupt a challenge. If she dies, she dies. That is the way of our people." The guards hesitated. They looked at their lady, trapped in the arms of the human, and they did not know what to do. They had never seen anything like this before. Seraphine was supposed to be the one in control. Seraphine was supposed to be the one who killed. 10 seconds passed, then 20, then 30. Cole's body was shaking with the effort. Seraphine was sobbing against him, tears streaming down her face. Neither of them could let go. They were locked together by something stronger than either of them. At last, after what felt like an eternity, Cole released her. Seraphine collapsed to her knees. Her perfect white skin had flushed with color. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked up at Cole with an expression that no one in the room had ever seen on her face. It was the look of someone who had just been broken open. Cole stood above her. He was pale and shaking. Blood dripped from his nose. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He had come closer to death than he had ever been before. But he was still standing. He was still alive. The throne room was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just watched the impossible happen. The silent human had survived the kiss of the pale Empress. Cole pulled out his notepad. His hands were shaking so badly that his writing was hard to read, but he managed to form the words. He held the note up for Seraphine to see. It said, "My question, why you kill?" Seraphine looked at the note. Then she looked at her own hands. Her claws were sharp and deadly. They had taken so many lives. She had never questioned it before. Killing was simply what she did. It was what her people had always done. But now, with Cole's memories still burning in her mind, with the weight of his grief still pressing on her heart, she found that the old answers did not work anymore. She opened her mouth to give some clever reply, some cold and distant excuse, but the words that came out were the truth. "Because," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I did not know there was another way to feel alive." Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached down and offered her his hand. It was a simple gesture. It was the gesture of one person helping another to their feet. Nothing more. Seraphine stared at his hand like it was the strangest thing she had ever. The news spread through Korath Station like fire through dry grass. Within hours, everyone had heard what happened in the throne room. The silent human had survived Lady Seraphine's kiss. Not only had he survived, but he had brought her to her knees. He had made the pale Empress cry. Some people thought it was a trick. Some people thought it was a lie. But too many had been there. Too many had seen it with their own eyes. The impossible had happened, and nothing on the station would ever be the same again. Cole did not care about the rumors. He went back to his ship and sat alone in the cockpit. His body felt empty. His head hurt. His nose had finally stopped bleeding, but there was still dried blood on his face. He had come closer to death than he had in 7 years of dangerous cargo runs. And yet, for the first time in a long time, he felt something other than numbness. He thought about Seraphine's answer. She killed because she did not know another way to feel alive. He understood that more than he wanted to admit. For 7 years, he had been doing the same thing. He had been going through the motions of life without actually living. He took dangerous jobs because he did not care if he died. He flew through pirate territory because the risk meant nothing to someone who had nothing to lose. In a way, they were the same. Two broken people who had forgotten what it meant to truly live. He fell asleep in his pilot's chair and dreamed of Lucy. She was standing in their kitchen again, sunlight in her hair. She was smiling at him, that warm smile that had always made everything better. She did not speak. She just looked at him with those kind eyes. When Cole woke up, his face was wet with tears. Back in her throne room, Seraphine sat alone. She had sent everyone away, even Cale. She needed time to think. She needed time to understand what had happened to her. The memories Cole had shared were still in her mind. She could not stop seeing his wife's face. She could not stop hearing his daughter's laugh. And she could not stop feeling the weight of his grief, that terrible emptiness that had swallowed his soul. For 200 years, Seraphine had fed on life force. She had taken the energy of others and used it to make herself stronger. It was what her people did. It was what they had always done. She had never thought of it as cruel. She had never thought of her victims as anything more than food. But now she knew the truth. Every life she had taken had been a universe of memories and feelings and hopes. Every person she had killed had loved someone. Every person she had killed had been loved by someone. And when she ended them, she had created more grief, more emptiness, more broken people like Cole. How many Coles had she made? How many silent ghosts were walking through the galaxy because of her? The thought made her sick. 3 days passed. Cole's medical supplies were released, and he flew them to the refugee colony as planned. The sick children got their medicine. Some of them would live who would have died without it. It was a small victory, but it was real. When Cole returned to Koritz Station, he told himself it was just for fuel. He told himself he would leave right away. But when his ship docked, he found a message waiting for him. It was from Seraphine. It said, "Please come. I need to understand." Cole stared at the message for a long time. He should leave. He should fly away and never come back. Getting involved with the Valdori was dangerous. Getting involved with Seraphine was suicide. But then he thought about her face when she had answered his question. He thought about the crack in her voice. He thought about how lost she had looked when she took his hand. He went. Seraphine met him not in her throne room, but in a small garden hidden deep in the station. It was a strange place, full of alien plants that grew in the artificial light. There was a small fountain in the center, and the sound of running water filled the air. She was sitting on a bench by the fountain. She looked different. Her hair was loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual severe style. She was wearing simple clothes, a dark dress without any of her usual jewelry. She looked smaller somehow, more human. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was soft. "I was not sure you would." Cole sat on the other end of the bench. He pulled out his notepad and wrote, "You said you needed to understand." "Understand what?" Seraphine looked at the fountain. The water sparkled in the light. "I have been alive for 300 years, she said. In all that time, I have never felt what I felt during our kiss. Your grief, your love, your pain. It was so strong, so real." She turned to look at him. How do humans live with feelings like that? How do you survive them? Cole thought about the question for a long time. Then he wrote, "We do not always survive them. Sometimes they destroy us, but sometimes they make us stronger. It depends on what we do with them." "What did you do with yours?" Seraphine asked. Cole looked at his hands. They were rough and scarred from years of hard work. He wrote, "I buried them. I locked them away and tried to forget. I stopped talking because words hurt too much. I stopped feeling because feelings hurt too much." He paused, then wrote more. It was not living. It was just existing. Seraphine nodded slowly. "That is what I have been doing too," she said. "For 300 years, I have been existing. I have been feeding and ruling and killing, but I have not been living. I did not know there was a difference until now." They sat in silence for a while. The fountain bubbled and splashed. Somewhere in the distance, the station hummed with the sound of machines and people. "Your wife," Seraphine said at last. "She was beautiful. I saw her in your memories. She loved you very much." Cole nodded. He did not write anything. The pain was too close to the surface. "Your daughter," Seraphine continued. "She had your eyes. She thought you were the greatest man in the universe." Cole's hands began to shake. He pressed them flat against his legs to make them stop. "I am sorry," Seraphine said. "I am sorry for your loss. I am sorry for all the people I have taken from the universe. I am sorry for all the grief I have caused." It was a small thing, an apology. But it was the first real apology Seraphine had ever given. For 200 years, she had never said she was sorry for anything. She was too powerful. She was too proud. But now, sitting in this garden with a broken human, she finally understood what she had done. Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he wrote, "I believe you." Something changed in Seraphine's face. It was like watching ice begin to melt. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were not tears of pain. They were tears of something else. Relief, maybe? Or hope? I do not know what to do now, she admitted. I do not know how to be anything other than what I have always been. I do not know how to live without killing. Cole wrote, Neither do I. I do not know how to live without grief. But maybe we can learn together. Seraphine looked at him with wonder. You would help me? After everything I have done? After everything I tried to do to you? Cole wrote, You showed me something tonight. You showed me that I'm still alive, that I can still feel, that there might be a reason to keep going. He paused, then added, That is worth more than you know. They stayed in the garden until the station's artificial night fell. They did not touch. They did not kiss. They just talked, or rather, Seraphine talked, and Cole wrote. She told him about her childhood on a dark world. She told him about the first time she fed on another being. She told him about the loneliness that had followed her for 3 centuries, and Cole listened. He had not listened to anyone in 7 years. He had cut himself off from the universe because connection hurt too much. But now, sitting in this strange garden with this strange woman, he found that he could listen again. He could care again. It was terrifying. It was wonderful. It was the first step on a very long road. When they finally parted, Seraphine stopped him at the door. Cole, she said. It was the first time she had used his name. Will you come back tomorrow? Cole thought about Lucy. He thought about Emma. He thought about the 7 years of silence and loneliness. Then he looked at Seraphine, at this ancient creature who was just as lost and broken as he was. He nodded yes, and for the first time in 300 years, Seraphine smiled a real smile. The weeks that followed were strange and difficult and wonderful all at once. Cole stayed on Kara's station, sleeping in his ship but spending most of his time with Seraphine. They would meet in the hidden garden or in her private rooms, or sometimes just walking through the station's corridors together. The silent human and the pale empress became a common sight, and the people of Korath did not know what to make of it. Seraphine began to change. It started with small things. She stopped taking a cut from the merchant's cargo. She let a group of prisoners go free. She began to ask questions instead of giving orders. Her court watched these changes with growing fear. The lady they had served for 200 years was becoming someone else, and they did not like it. Kale, her second-in-command, was the most worried of all. He had served Seraphine since he was young. He had grown powerful under her rule. He had done terrible things in her name, and he had been rewarded for it. If Seraphine was changing, what would happen to him? What would happen to all the promises she had made? He decided he could not take that risk. One night, Kale came to Cole's ship. Cole was alone, working on repairs to his engine. When he saw Kale standing in the doorway, he reached for his weapon. But Kale held up his empty hands. I am not here to fight, Kale said. I am here to offer you a deal. Cole waited, his hand still on his gun. The lady is weak now, Kale continued. You broke something in her with your kiss. She's not the ruler she once was. There are many on this station who would pay good money to see her fall. I could make that happen. I could take her place and run things the way they should be run. He stepped closer, his eyes gleaming in the dim light of the cargo hold. Help me, and I will make you rich. I will give you anything you want. Ships, credits, power. Just step aside and let me do what needs to be done. The galaxy will be better off without her. Cole looked at Kale for a long moment. Then he picked up his notepad and wrote 2 words. The note said, Get out. Kale's face twisted with anger. You are a fool, he spat. She is a monster. She has killed thousands. She is bathed in the blood of worlds. And you want to save her? For what? Because she cried a few tears? Cole wrote another note. She is trying to change. That is more than you have ever done. Kale laughed, a cold and bitter sound. Change? The Valdori do not change. We are what we are. She will slip back into her old ways soon enough. And when she does, she will kill you just like she killed all the others. He turned to leave. Remember this conversation, human. You had a chance to be on the winning side. He disappeared into the station, and Cole was left alone with his thoughts. He knew Cale was right about one thing. Seraphine had killed thousands. She was a monster by any measure. The old Cole would have walked away. The old Cole would have taken his ship and flown to the other side of the galaxy. But he was not the old Cole anymore. Something had woken up inside him. Something that had been sleeping for 7 years. He thought about Lucy. What would she have done? She had always seen the best in people. She had always believed that everyone deserved a second chance. It was one of the things he had loved most about her. He made his decision. That night, assassins came for Seraphine. There were 6 of them, trained killers who moved like shadows. They slipped past her guards and crept toward her private rooms. They carried blades coated with a special poison, one of the few things in the galaxy that could kill a Valdori. Cole was waiting for them. He had spent the last few hours hiding near Seraphine's door. He had not told her about Cale's visit. He had not told anyone. He had simply taken his position and waited. The first assassin did not even see him. Cole stepped out of the shadows and broke the man's neck with his bare hands. The second assassin managed to draw his blade, but Cole was faster. He grabbed the man's wrist and twisted until the bone snapped. The blade fell to the ground, and Cole kicked it away. The other 4 assassins attacked together. Cole fought like a man possessed. He had no armor and no fancy weapons. All he had was 7 years of pain and rage and a desperate need to protect something that mattered. He took a blade to the shoulder. He took a fist to the face. He kept fighting. One by one, the assassins fell. Cole did not kill all of them. Some he simply hurt badly enough that they could not continue. But by the end of it, he was the only one standing. Seraphine appeared in the doorway. She stared at the bodies on the floor, then at Cole. He was covered in blood, most of it not his own. His shoulder was bleeding badly. His face was bruised and swelling, but he was alive. "You saved me," she said. There was wonder in her voice. "Why?" Cole leaned against the wall. He was too tired to write. He just looked at her with those tired eyes and hoped she would understand. "Cale," she said. It was not a question. He sent them. Cole nodded. Seraphine's single quotes as face hardened. For a moment, she looked like the old Seraphine, the pale empress who had ruled through fear and death. She looked ready to tear Cale apart with her bare hands. Then she stopped. She took a deep breath. She looked at Cole, at the wounds he had taken to protect her, and something in her face softened. "The old me would have killed him," she said. "The old me would have killed everyone who helped him. But that is not who I want to be anymore." She knelt beside Cole and touched his wounded shoulder. Her touch was cold, but gentle. "You are hurt. Let me help you. Can you do that?" Cole managed to croak. His voice was rough from 7 years of silence, but the words came out. "Can you heal without feeding?" Seraphine looked surprised. It was the first time she had heard him speak. His voice was not what she had expected. It was soft and tired, like a voice that had forgotten how to be loud. "I do not know," she admitted. "I have never tried." She closed her eyes and focused. The Valdori drained life force, but that power worked both ways. If she could take, perhaps she could also give. She reached inside herself to the stolen energy of all her past victims and tried to push some of it out. It was harder than anything she had ever done. Her body fought against it. Every instinct told her to take, not give. But she thought about Cole's memories. She thought about Lucy and Emma. She thought about all the pain she had caused and all the pain she wanted to stop causing. Slowly, carefully, she pushed her energy into Cole's wounds, thought it felt like fire at first. Cole gasped and tried to pull away. But then the fire turned to warmth, and the warmth turned to healing. His shoulders stopped bleeding. The bruises on his face began to fade. He was not fully healed, but he was no longer in danger. Seraphine opened her eyes. She was pale and shaking. Giving had taken more out of her than 100 feedings ever had. "That was hard," she whispered. Cole looked at her with something like amazement. "You did it," he said. "You gave instead of taking." She smiled weakly. "You said we could learn together." "This is me learning." They sat there in the corridor, surrounded by fallen assassins, and for a moment, everything was quiet. Cole reached out and took her hand. It was cold, as always, but it was real. It was connection. It was something he had not felt in 7 years. "What happens now?" Seraphine asked. Cole squeezed her hand. "Now we deal with Kale, but not the old way. We find another way." Seraphine nodded. She was tired and scared and more uncertain than she had ever been. But for the first time in 300 years, she did not feel alone. "Another way," she repeated. "I think I would like that." In the shadows of the corridor, one of the wounded assassins managed to crawl away. He would bring news to Kale that the attempt had failed. He would tell him about the human who fought like a demon and the Valdori, who healed instead of killed. The war for Kara Station was just beginning. But Cole and Seraphine would face it together. 3 months passed, and Kara Station transformed for everyone's eyes. Seraphine released more prisoners. She lowered the taxes on merchants. She started a council where people could bring their problems and complaints instead of just suffering in silence. The people who had feared her began to hope. The people who had hated her began to wonder if they had been wrong. Cole stayed by her side through all of it. He did not lead. He did not give orders. He simply watched and listened and offered his thoughts when asked. His voice was still rough and quiet, but he was using it more now. Every day, he spoke a little more. Every day, he came a little more back to life. He still thought about Lucy and Emma every night. He still dreamed about them. But the dreams were different now. They were not nightmares anymore. They were memories, precious and painful, but not destroying. He was learning to carry his grief instead of being buried by it. Kale, meanwhile, was not sitting still. After the failed assassination, he knew he could not attack Seraphine directly. She was too strong, and now she had the human to protect her. So he reached out to her enemies beyond the station. He sent messages to warlords and crime bosses throughout the sector. He told them that the Pale Empress was weak. He told them that Kara Station was ripe for the taking. They listened. The fleet arrived on a cold morning in station time. 15 ships, armed to the teeth, surrounded Kara Station like wolves around a wounded deer. Their leader, a brutal man named Drex, who had lost family to Seraphine's past cruelty, sent a single message to the station. Surrender the vampire. Surrender the station, or we will turn it to dust. Seraphine stood on the command deck, looking at the fleet on the screens. Cole stood beside her. Around them, her remaining loyal followers waited for orders. They were outnumbered and outgunned. If they fought, they would lose. "I could kill them," Seraphine said quietly. "I could go out there and drain their life force. I have done it before. I could end this in an hour." Cole looked at her. "Is that what you want?" She was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "No, I do not want to be that person anymore. But I do not know what else to do." Cole thought about it. He thought about everything that had happened over the past 3 months. He thought about all the changes Seraphine had made, all the people she had helped, all the ways she had tried to become better. And he thought about his own journey, from a silent ghost to a man who could speak again. "Let me try something," he said, before anyone could stop him. Cole walked to the communication console and opened a channel to the fleet. His face appeared on every screen in every ship. Drex looked at him with confusion and contempt. "Who are you?" Drex demanded. "Where is the vampire?" "My name is Cole Harris," Cole said. His voice was still soft, still rough, but every word was clear. "I am just a human. A cargo hauler. Nobody special. Then why should I listen to you?" "Because I was where you are 3 months ago. I came to this station with nothing but pain. I had lost everyone I loved. I had given up on life. And then I met Serafini." The fleet commanders listened. They had expected threats. They had expected begging. They had not expected this. "She tried to kill me," Cole continued. "She kissed me with lips that had killed 17 men before me. And I survived. Not because I was strong. Not because I was special. I survived because I had nothing left to lose, and somehow that was enough." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But here is the thing. After that kiss, she changed. I saw it happen. I watched her become someone new. The monster you all hate, the Pale Empress who killed without mercy, she is not here anymore. She is trying to be better. She is trying to make up for what she did." Drex laughed bitterly. "Make up for it? She killed my brother. She drained the life from him while he begged for mercy. There is no making up for that." "You are right," Cole said. "There is no making up for it. Nothing she does will bring your brother back. Nothing will erase the pain. I know that better than most." His voice cracked slightly. "I lost my wife and my daughter to violence. I know what it is like to want revenge. I know what it is like to want someone to pay." The fleet was silent now. Even Drex was listening. "But killing her will not bring your brother back. Destroying this station will not heal your wounds. It will just create more grief, more pain, more people like us." Cole looked directly into the camera. "I am not asking you to forgive her. I am asking you to give her a chance to become someone worth forgiving." The silence stretched for a long time. Then Drex spoke. "Why should I believe anything you say? Why should I believe she has changed?" Cole turned to Seraphine. "Show them." Seraphine stepped forward into the view of the camera. She looked smaller than Drex had expected. Less monstrous. More human. "I have no defense for what I was," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was real emotion beneath it. "I was a predator. I fed on your people because I was hungry and because I could. I told myself it was natural, that I was simply following my instincts. But that was a lie. I had a choice, and I chose cruelty." She took a deep breath. "I cannot undo what I had done. I cannot bring back the people I killed. All I can do is try to be different from this point forward. I have released my prisoners. I have ended the taxes that crushed your merchants. I have started building something new here, something that is not built on fear and death." She looked directly at Drex. "I am sorry for your brother. I am sorry for all of them. If you want justice, I will face it. I will stand trial for my crimes. But please, do not destroy what we are trying to build here. The people of this station deserve better than to die for my sins." Drex stared at her through the screen. His face was hard and unreadable. The moments stretched like hours. Then he lowered his weapons. "I want a trial," he said. "I want justice. But I will not destroy innocent people to get it." One by one, the other ships followed. The weapons powered down. The threat passed in the command center. Seraphine let out a breath she had not known she was holding. Cole stood beside her, exhausted but relieved. They had won, not through violence, but through words and hope and the chance at redemption. The months that followed were not easy. There were trials. There were negotiations. There were old wounds that would take generations to heal. But Kara Station became something new. It became a place where enemies could become allies. It became a place of second chances. Years later, travelers would tell stories about the station's unusual leaders. The former space vampire who had learned to give instead of take. The silent human who had found his voice and used it to stop a war. They were an unlikely pair, bound together by shared pain and shared hope. When people asked Cole how he had survived Seraphine's kiss, he would smile. It was a real smile now, one that reached his eyes. Humans, he would say, have survived worse. And when people asked Seraphine how she had changed, she would look at Cole with something like love in her ancient eyes. Someone showed me that it was possible, she would say. Someone dared to see the person I could become instead of the monster I was. In his quarters at night, Cole still talked to Lucy and Emma. He told them about his day. He told them about Seraphine and the station, and all the strange things that had happened since he came to this dark corner of the galaxy. He told them that he was living again, really living, and that he hoped they would be proud. Sometimes, he thought he could hear Lucy's voice in the back of his mind. "I am proud of you," she would say. "I always knew you were stronger than you thought." And Cole would smile and wipe the tears from his eyes and look out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the endless darkness of space, there was hope. There was the chance for broken things to be mended. There was the promise of tomorrow. That, he had learned, was the most human thing of all.